need him to be a ringer when we show up to this. This was nice, David, to lay out some swag for everyone.
We talked about it earlier today. He was like asking permission. I'm like, of course, I do. Yeah. As long as they're not setting up a fire out back and like toss it all in a fire.
So we're working out a few AV issues, and then we'll start in just another couple minutes here.
Yeah, that kind of worked.
Are you ready? Feels like we're ready. We good? Okay. All right. Apparently we're live. Can you all hear me okay? All right. Just so everybody knows, we are on camera. We're streaming live for those that couldn't be here in person. So that's why we want to make sure everything's working and wait till that's all going before we start. So welcome. Thank you to Mary and the town of Hollis for hosting us here. Really appreciate that, and your staff time to make all this work in your beautiful new facility here. So, and thank you to all of you for spending a Thursday night with us. We'll try to make it worth your while. I'm going to quickly, well, I should say I'm Bruce DeGennaro. I'm going to facilitate the meeting tonight, and so I'll just, be here to help kind of just take your questions and manage the discussion and all that. So I'm going to go over a couple just real simple things to get us started, the agenda, some objectives, a couple of ground rules, and then we'll get into the meat of the conversation. So first off on the agenda, it's on the screen there. I also have an abbreviated version here. So after we're done, after I'm done with the welcome and the objectives, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan and the rest of the crew up here to give a fairly short presentation on where things stand with decommissioning, both the overall process and the plan that is currently out and available for public review and comment, and they'll talk about that. But that'll be item 2 on our agenda. And then last but definitely not least, the real reason that we're here is to hear from you. And so we'll make sure we save plenty of time for public comments and questions that you might have. If you are interested in making a comment, please fill out a card in the back there if you didn't catch that when you came in, just so we have an idea of how many people want to comment and we can manage the time better that way. So please go ahead and fill out a card and let us know that you want to speak, okay? And I have a walk-around mic that we'll use when we get to that, or you're welcome to come to the podium if you'd rather do that. All right, so quickly, let me just touch on some objectives. I really just have 2 here. They're at the top of your agenda. I really kind of mentioned them already. The first objective is just to provide an update to you all. This is a long process. It's already several years in the making. It'll be a couple more before it's all done. So we just want to keep you apprised of where we are in that calendar of events, and also update you on the plan itself. And then the second objective, which I also already mentioned, is to get your input. And this is not the only opportunity to do that. We welcome it here, but you can send in written comments on the document, and we'll go over that, how you can do that. And there will be plenty of other opportunities for public input on this process overall. There's lots of state and federal regulatory reviews that have to happen. They all have public involvement processes. And so you'll have plenty of opportunity, but we welcome your comments today. Couple of quick ground rules just to keep us all working together. I don't know how well you can read those, but I'll just rattle them off. Pretty simple. Just try to listen to each other. We're here to learn from each other. So ask you to listen and be curious. Try to learn from what we're hearing from you, what you're hearing from us. Try to use respectful language. I think that goes without saying. And also just try to respect the agenda, the time, try to be concise so that we can make sure we make enough time for everybody to speak that wants to. All right. So that's really all I had to say. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. Ryan will introduce himself and welcome you from Brookfield's perspective, and then we'll go from there into the presentation. So, Ryan.
Thanks, Bruce. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Brookfield, I'd like to thank you all for being here today to discuss the proposed Bar Mills Dam decommissioning plan. We appreciate the continued interest, feedback, and engagement from community members, local leaders, and agency representatives throughout this process. My name, as Bruce mentioned, is Ryan Netto, and to my right here is Isaac Dwyron. Isaac is slated to be the project manager for the construction portion of this project. Myself, I joined Brookfield in 2017, and I currently oversee capital and major maintenance projects for Brookfield's hydro assets in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. I was born and raised in Brewer, Maine, right across the river from Bangor, and I currently live in Herman with my wife and 2-year-old son. I'm fortunate to work in Maine and in renewable energy, especially along the river systems that play such an important role in many local communities. As many of you know, Brookfield owns and operates several hydro facilities along the Saco River, including Bar Mills. We understand these facilities are not just energy assets, but also part of the communities where people live, work, and recreate. Brookfield values having a strong local presence and strives to be a responsible steward in the communities where we operate. The Bar Mills Dam decommissioning effort has been underway since 2022. Since then, Brookfield and our consultants have been conducting studies, gathering information, and developing the proposed decommissioning plan and surrender application. Over the last year, we have also worked closely with representatives from Buxton and Hollis, as well as the Decommissioning Committee, to better understand local concerns, priorities, and opportunities. The plan is a result of a collaborative process with many of its key components developed through ongoing discussions and input from the Decommissioning Committee. This evening, our goal is to provide an overview of Brookfield's proposed plan and walk through its key elements. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brookfield's owner's engineer, Kleinschmidt. They'll walk through the proposed plan in more detail, and we'll answer any questions we can for you guys today.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm Andy Quah with Kleinschmidt. I primarily work in FERC regulatory projects throughout the state and throughout the country. Ryan already covered a lot of this slide. As he mentioned, we've been doing this project so far for many years. There's several more years to go, and once we do submit our license surrender application to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, there's also a public process there that you'll have an opportunity for comment, as well as state and federal permitting that we have to go through as well. And many of you have heard this before, but mainly why we're here. The station can no longer be operated due to concrete issues. So it was taken offline in 2017 and as part of a long-term settlement agreement for fish passage, Brookfield essentially had to make a decision to repower the station, reconstruct the powerhouse, and install fish passage, or surrender and remove the project, which is why we're here today.
My name's Kevin Cooley. I'm an engineer with Kleinschmidt and have been helping Brookfield with the engineering plans and for the removal. And so we want to talk a little bit about what the decommissioning plan is and a reminder a little bit of where we've come from. Again, we started this several years ago. I think we had a meeting around 2022 where we presented the initial plan for the removal, and we've come a long ways with a lot of the input that the communities have given. And so we'll walk down through what the final plan is for the decommissioning, and we'll show some renderings of what we think it's going to look like, and along the way kind of reminding us where we've come from. So I'll go through the list here and then show an overview to get everybody oriented, maybe so you can remember what all the different features of the site are. But so the spillway is the big thing, right? So the spillway is the main part of the dam that you see when you're standing on the bridge looking upstream, and the plan for that is a full removal. A few years ago, we started the project thinking that it was going to be a partial removal, but Brookfield has decided to take the entire spillway out. In addition to that, the Rogers Fiber Mill Foundation, which is on the Buxton side of the bank, of course, side of the river, is going to be also removed, demolished, and regraded, so that will no longer be an eyesore on the side of the river as well. Those are two very big things. Those are really a lot of effort has been put into kind of coming to that conclusion. So those are the highlights, I think. The canal headworks, which is on the Hollis side of the river, will be removed. The canal is going to remain as it is, but dry. So the canal will not have water in it. It will be dry. It will revegetate, and it will be wetted at some point with very high flows, but for the most part, it'll remain very dry. The powerhouse and the powerhouse spillway are intended to remain. Looking at the powerhouse from the bridge down the length of the canal, you'll see more. There'll be some plantings and screening done, so you won't see the powerhouse from the road, but it will remain there. Recreation access. So there's lots of a few different components of recreation access that will remain. The trails on Usher Island will remain. There's a canoe portage that will remain, how necessary it is. The boat launch that's next to the dam will not remain as it is. It won't. We initially planned to extend that out further in towards the river to get access, but it was through conversations, it was decided that that wasn't really going to be a useful site. So the decision was made to recreate a new recreation access site right out behind the Hollis Town Hall here. So again, through the work of the committee, we have a plan to use the site that's owned by the town of Hollis. Brookfield will develop that into a recreation access, hand carry kind of boat launch, canoes and kayaks, and be able to access the main part of the flat water of the river remaining. Fire suppression. So right now there are two dry hydrants on the impoundment, one on the Hollis side, one on the Buxton side. With the dam removed and the water level lowered, those won't be effective. So there is a plan that's being worked on. It's not finalized yet to replace the functionality of those, and that's currently in the works and will be continue to be developed over the next year before the final removal is happening. Residential wells is another concern that's been brought forward, and so with the lowering water levels, the wells there may be some wells impacted. We've done some surveying, so meaning requests for information type surveys, and maybe some of you have provided some of that information. So we have collected some of that information and are processing it essentially to try to determine, what kind of impact there may be as a result of the the lower water levels on the wells. And so again, that's in the works and will continue to be the plan developed over the next year or so to make sure that any impacts are dealt with. And then a few public safety measures that will be enhancements, including fencing and cameras at the powerhouse for the most part. So backing up in terms of what we just talked about as far as the different features. So looking at the spillway is in the center of the picture there. Andy's pointing to it. So that's the spillway. To the right of that is the Rogers Fiber Mill Foundation. Again, those will both be removed. The headworks on the left side of the photo will be removed, and the canal spillway immediately downstream of that will be removed. So all that infrastructure right there that's visible from the bridge will be removed. Um, the canal itself is there. You can see watered up in this photo. The Usher Island trails and parking area that's there. That'll remain. Moving downstream to the powerhouse spillway and the powerhouse, those will remain, and the canoe portage to the side of the powerhouse will remain. And we have a few renderings. Use your artistic eye, I guess, and picture what this might look like in the future. It's not an exact prediction what it might look like, but this is our representation of what the dam, with the dam removed, what it'll look like. It'll be a free-flowing river. There's no dam there. As you can see, the boat launch to the side, on the left side of the photo, you can still see is there. The Rogers Fiber Mill will be removed and essentially grassed over with some riprap slope protection around the edges. The canal will be dry, and that will revegetate. There's some representation of that there, but not, it'll probably be even greener than that. The next photo, so we've, in some of the documentation over time in the surrender application as well that you may have seen, we've shown some renderings of from different aspects, looking at different features of the site. And so we've got a few slides here just to kind of walk through, again, kind of reminding where we've been and where we've ended up. So this is the existing dam, looking from, in the upper right, of course, looking from the bridge, and then an aerial view of the dam as it stands now. And then if you move forward to the next slide, this is where we were a couple of years ago with a partial removal, representing what the partial removal may look like with the Rogers Fiber Mill still in place there. And then similarly in the lower left, the partial removal with the Rogers Fiber Mill remaining. So that's where we were, and now this is where we've ended up. Again, different perspectives of what we think it might look like after the removal. And so this is looking from the bridge on the upper right towards the Rogers Fiber Mill, and you can see, without that mill there, it is expected to open up that space quite a bit. And then in the lower left, again, plan view there. So this is the canal. The left-hand side, of course, is the canal, not necessarily as it is today, but as it is today if it was in a dewatered state. This was during some repairing operations a couple of years ago. And so this is what you see looking down the canal now, and what we're expecting it to look like looking down the canal after the removal, with the canal revegetating. The portions that are soil covered revegetate. We'll have some protection in the center for any drainage that needs to happen. It'll drain down through the powerhouse spillway through an opening that exists in that. And then the powerhouse here, it is there actually in that picture. It's just behind some trees that will be planted and helping to screen the powerhouse. And then this is the rec site that we're planning back here. Now this isn't what it's going to look like. This is what it looks like now. We haven't gotten to a point to project what it may look like. But the photo on the left, if you're right back behind the building here, go down the side road beside the building and down towards maybe it's a salt shed or the equipment shed. There's a road, an existing access road that goes straight down towards the river. That's the picture on the left. You can see it's kind of grown up, but actually it's got a very solid gravel base to it, and with some moderate work to it, we can make that nice road down through there to get access to the river. And then to the right is the site that road leads to, which provides access to the kind of a flat water part of the river. In that photo, it's hard to make out maybe, but that was during a drawdown, and so it's actually not probably far from what the river levels may be at that point post removal. And then just so that's the plan, and then this is just a little bit about the timeline going forward here. So the draft license surrender application has been issued, and for public comment, that's where this meeting has originated from, and you all have an opportunity to make comments on that. So those comments are due later this summer, at which time it will turn into a final application for surrender that will go to FERC. And then the state and local permits will also be prepared around that same time and issued to, filed with the state agencies and local agencies for approvals, and then expecting approvals from those permit applications in about a year. So in 2027, end of the summer 2027 is when that's expected, and expected to be about a year of FERC process before they issue a surrender order, which would allow for the construction or deconstruction of the dam. So that would be, again, sometime maybe fall of 27, and then Brookfield's prepared to start very soon thereafter. It may be late 27, but also quite likely 2028 when the removal actually happens. And that's the plan.
So I just have 2 comment cards. Is that right, David? Okay. So let me just ask, without opening the floodgates, if you all have questions about what Kevin just walked through, I'm happy to take like clarifying questions, and then we can go to the actual comments. But did anybody have just a question about something Kevin mentioned that you didn't understand? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, let me, just so everybody can hear you, I'm going to give you this mic.
The recreation area access that you guys are proposing, will that enable us to put a boat in, not just a carry-in, but a small boat with a trailer?
No, it's the banks are too steep there to really create a place where you can get a boat in. So it's not a trailered access. It would only be a carry-in access.
So will there be a trailered access on this section of the river?
No, not between Bar Mills and West Bucks.
And I'm still just taking questions, and then we'll go to comments.
Kevin, you said the power plant would remain intact, but I know you have plans to remove the crane and other aspects of it. So could you just inform the audience of that? I think it'd be helpful.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for that reminder. So as far as the features at the powerhouse that will be removed, there's a crane that sits on top of the powerhouse. If you're looking at the powerhouse, it's kind of a lattice structure that sticks up above the roof of it. There's also a lattice transmission tower. The transmission tower on the left will remain, but the crane that's on the roof will be removed. There's also a crane building, a building that operates the crane. It's a cable-operated crane, so that building will be also removed. And there's another transmission tower adjacent to the powerhouse that is not being used, so that will also be removed. The big transmission tower is a CMP tower that's part of the transmission line, so that will stay.
And we might mention there's a couple big gates that are currently up, so they're pretty visible. I think those are going to be dropped, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the gray colored rectangles that you can see from the bridge are the gates to operate to close off the water passages. Those will be removed from their current location. They'll be part of the blocking off of the waterways.
I'm curious if you have any estimates as to the flow of water at different times of year. Is there going to be a lot of current there in the spring? So if someone was canoeing, are they going to be able to canoe upstream? It certainly can go downstream, okay, but do we have any idea how much current's going to be there?
I would say yes. It's going to vary. It's going to look very much what the river looks like downstream of the dam now. So that's kind of how I think of it is the impoundment stills the water. So what's upstream of the dam now is very flat and still and calm, and you can paddle upstream under most conditions, right? And then with the dam removed, what you see downstream of the dam now, kind of rocky, bouldery, right, riffly, and that will be very much what the river upstream will look like after the removal. So I would, there will be times that you might be able to paddle upstream, and there will be times that you certainly probably couldn't paddle upstream. The flow, the flow is not impacted by the removal of the dam. The velocities through there certainly, or how fast the water's moving certainly is impacted by the dam removal, and that's what you're kind of looking at for how easy it is to paddle upstream or not.
What about the gorge on the lower island on the Buxton side? There's a 28-foot drop in there, but on all your maps, you showed 5 feet. I had actually 2 questions. There's a gorge with a depth finder and a big boat.
Okay.
They call it Big Rock.
Where I'm not familiar with that.
It's the island. It's the first. There's 2 islands. It's the first island just above the dam.
Okay.
And they call it Big Rock just before you hit the trestles.
Upstream of the trestles or downstream?
It's up.
Okay.
It's just after the trestles, if you were going north.
So what I would say is that the area where the trestles are, right around there is very
rocky.
high ledge, right? Very rocky. And
Right.
You already know that. So with the dam removed, it'll be much more rocky. So that area will actually become, I won't say a dam, but it will be a control for the water levels upstream, because it's gonna concentrate there, and that's gonna set the water levels that are upstream of that, where you're talking about where the island is. So the water levels upstream of the trestle piers will be much less impacted than the water level immediately upstream of the dam.
But just so I mean, it's 20-foot, it's a 28-foot drop in there on that side of the island.
Mm.
And all of the maps that we reviewed that you provided, you had 5 feet, and it's not 5 feet. It's a 28-foot drop. And my other question is, and I'm assuming even from kayaking all last summer, that the first island, even farther up, because at some point you could almost walk across that island just below it. How will the water be impacted there? And I'm going to ask because there's a 4-door white car sitting right there in the river. And if it dropped more than a foot last year, we'd all be looking at the car.
I'm trying to understand exactly what the question is. How much will the water drop? Is that really what your question is? Yep. Yeah, the water level will certainly drop. It will drop. The amount that it will drop will be very much based on what the flow is at any given time, right? So. Yep.
Is there anything we can do about the car? Because the car sitting in the middle of the river isn't exactly what everybody wants. Not to mention, once it's exposed to all that oxygen, it's gonna stop.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of stuff in the river that will probably, that will be less shallow, less.
Do we know who owns the car? All right, I'm going to go on to another question. Remember, we're in a question period, and then I'm going to go to comments because people have, asked a comment. So.
I live, the power station's in my backyard, and we've always gone down to the maintained portage canoe portage behind my house, which is just below the power station. I'm wondering who's going to maintain that portage? Is that going to end up the town's property? And all the fences around the power plant, are those going to come down and be taken away?
No, no.
Want to address that?
Yeah, we'll continue to
Get a little closer to the mic. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you won't see a whole lot of change downstream, as Kevin mentioned, and we still plan to maintain those areas for that access. So shouldn't see any changes there. No, the Brookfield will still own those properties, and yeah.
The plan is for them to remain open to the public.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul had a question over here, I think maybe. Somebody, yeah.
I'm curious about the granting of land. Either there's the boat access parcel there at the end of the dam, Usher Island, and that little point of land north of where the two bridges come together. If there are any plans to grant the land to the town or easements or whatever for recreation and what other purposes.
Yeah, we're open to conversation on that. Right now, there hasn't been any determination on what direction we'll go, but that's something that we plan to continue working towards opportunities there and see what might make sense. So that door's not closed by any means, but it's something we're going to be working through. Yeah.
The access down behind Town Hall here, I know that you guys mentioned that actual boat ramp access won't be possible due to the banks. Is there going to be a way to some sort of infrastructure to get down there and some sort of dock that people can use to get in and out, something that makes it accessible for like everybody, including kids and things like that, if an actual boat ramp is not possible?
Yes, absolutely. So the plan and the intent, we don't have a final plan yet, but the intent, what the discussion has been, is that we would put in a ramp, like an aluminum gangway of sorts to traverse the steep bank. So there'd be an abutment at the top to stabilize it, and then a ramp, gangway type ramp going down to a platform on the shore. And we're not sure there. That might be a concrete platform. We had some discussions about a potential float of some sort, dock of some sort. So that could be part of the plan as well. But yes, there will be. It's absolutely to get down over the steep bank. There would be something there to do that. Yes, we're trying to also not disturb. There are a lot of nice pine trees and hardwoods down there, so we don't. If we dig too much and create too much of a ramp, then we're going to disturb all that, which is kind of part of the nice part about the site. So we're trying to minimize the impact of that. So.
Okay, so I'm going to take maybe a couple more questions and then go to the comments. Did you have a question? No. Oh, you have? Okay, very good. All right, we got a couple questions over here, and then we're going to go to comments.
Thank you. You spoke to, at the powerhouse, adding fencing and cameras. Can you speak more to the why of cameras and also like who would have access to that footage and for what purpose?
So, yeah, so Brookfield has cameras at a lot of their sites now, and they are all monitored by their river control center, which is manned. I think it's manned 24 hours a day, right? And they're really for security purposes for Bar Mills. In some other cases, they're for public safety, looking downstream of dams and things to make sure that there aren't fishermen in the river before they change gate settings and things like that. But so they'd be monitored by their river control center. And then was the question the purpose? What's the purpose of them? Yeah, it's to manage vandalism basically and or understand if there's potential any vandalism happening at the site.
My question's about wells. I know you mentioned that you've surveyed some residence wells in the area. and that the potential for them to run dry is a possibility. What is Brookfield's plan for folks whose wells do potentially be affected by the dam removal?
I'm going to let Ryan speak
Yeah, no,
to.
Brookfield's, committed to making it right and addressing wells that are impacted by the dam removal. So the big push right now is to understand, the condition of everybody's wells as much as we can, so we can really make sure that, it was impacted due to the removal. So if your well's working really well right now, it's, I advocate for trying to get that information to us so we can basically prove to say, hey, it was working, now it's not working, and Brookfield is here, we're here to make it right. So if we don't have that data up front, it makes it challenging to evaluate that. So that's going to be an ongoing effort that we've been working through, and we're going to continue to work through as far as getting all that data. Still a lot of work left to do there and to evaluate that with other consultants, but yeah, we're committed to making it right, wells that are impacted. Yeah.
Okay, do one more question and then I'm going to go to comments. That's all right. Let me just do one more and then we'll go to comments, and we'll save some time for additional questions.
Yeah, Steve Hines with Trout Unlimited. What I'm curious about is it sounds great that we're going to have the canal's going to revegetate, and with the dam gone, you'd assume that you're going to have fish passage, something that's overdue, and generally dam removal takes care of. Is there going to be a mechanism to, look at this thing at 5 years or so and, see how things are going? A lot of this is, a great plan, but until you know what happens, you don't really have it.
That certainly may be something that comes out of the FERC process as far as some sort of monitoring in the future. At this point, the plan is to restore the river to free flowing, basically what it was before the dam was there, and not necessarily monitoring, fish passage for some duration like that. But that may become a requirement. But at this point, there's not a plan to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to move, excuse me, to comments, and Terry, I'm going to go ahead and let you make your comment first.
Terry Walters, I was one of the Hollis representatives on this committee. And I just want to say that when we started this process several years ago, the thing that I think people had the most concern about was they wanted to restore the river to as much of its natural flow as possible. And when Brookfield came out with their initial plan, it was far from that. It was just breach the dam and leave it. And I can tell you the committee worked very hard on that. And I applaud Brookfield for listening and taking the entire structure plus the Rogers fiber out. It's going to make it a much better project. Now, with negotiations, you don't get everything you want, but I have to say we got an awful lot, and I appreciate that. Now, we're still going to be contesting or arguing over the power plant and a few other issues, but we've come a long ways, and thank the committee and Brookfield for that.
So, Rainey, I'm going to let you go next, if that's all right. Oh, I guess I misread that. Is there another Rainey, or am I not reading there? Lewis? No, Lewis? Oh, okay. All right, so I can move over that. All right. I got Rita. That's okay. Oh, sure. Absolutely.
First and foremost, I want to thank Brookfield, as well as what Mr. Walter said about removing the whole dam. I think that was crucial. That was important to everybody who lives around the dam and around this community, and it was a safety issue. So thank you. I think that needed to be done. I have a question about some of the things that remain. So the last time we had a meeting, and I made this comment, and no changes were made, I'm still here asking why. So I had asked why the liner to the canal, the cement walls, need to stay, because that's a very unnatural thing. And your photo up there that you showed us, to me, doesn't show any reason why those cement walls inside the canal, the lower canal, need to stay. I mean, getting back to its natural state, I'd like to see those cement walls gone too. Comment, okay. I have another one. So I don't understand enough of why things are done or not done, but why is the spillway that's attached to the powerhouse, why does that need to stay?
You want to take a stab at it, or?
Yeah, I would say to say it needs to stay is probably not the right way to say it. So it doesn't need to stay. It's just not part of the plan to be removed.
And so our goal is to restore the river to a free-flowing state. And so that canal within our plan is not part of that, but we're diverting the river towards the main channel. The canal is kind of a separate piece. So to Kevin's point there, as far as, the need versus the goal of the project for us, it's gonna stay. Is how the plan is right now. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So my opinion, I think more than just mine, other people's, is if there's anything made of cement that is not a purpose for Brookfield, it should go. There's no reason for a spillway to stay if you guys don't need it for whatever reason that it's attached to the powerhouse. It should go. It doesn't create a natural environment. It doesn't do what our goals are, which was make it a more natural river flow. No reason. I think it's a safety hazard, like leaving, the partial breach would have been a safety hazard. There's kids that goes in the woods, kids climb up there, kids can fall out, and we don't want to see any of that happen. And it's not natural. It wasn't there before the dam was there. Please consider removing anything that you're not using. So spillway, liner of the canals, any fencing, anything that Vicki talked about, anything. And I still think there's foundations there from an old sawmill that was down there too. There's big granite blocks, and there's a lot of stuff that people leave when they leave their businesses, and we're just asking you not to leave anything you're not using. So that's a request. But my major thing I want to talk about is revegetation. So I'm very concerned about, I live along the river, and I watch what happens when the water goes down, and I've been here for over 20 years, and I have watched when the water was high all the time, and, it would erode the water bankings where I live, and the trees would fall in, but now the water's low, so it's not eroding as much. But what do I see? I see vegetation growing in, and I'm really worried about that because it's an open house for invasive species. So the last time we had a meeting here, I was pretty disturbed because I could see the Japanese knotweed still growing on, the crossing where Usher Island is. And I did speak about it. And, that Japanese knotweed just seeds right into the water, right downstream. We're just feeding all the bankings along the Saco River. So I guess what I'm going to ask is I'd like to see a plan from Brookfield where you take it seriously that we do not want to have an open game area for invasive species. We'd like you to address that. I'd like personally to see a wetland biologist involved so that, the right thing would grow at the right places, and, maybe see if there could be a replanting of native species of something to grow in place of the invasive ones. I mean, I hear all kinds of stuff taking over all kinds of places. Bittersweet taking over places where people cannot stop it. I've seen the Japanese knotweed down there. There's a lot of other stuff that's invasive, but my goal, my dream, I think everybody's dream, is to see that Saco River return to the way it looked before there was a dam. So please keep that in mind. Consider having that wetland ecologist, biologist have a say in what's going on when the water flow does go down. Thank you, and thanks for listening.
All right, so I have one more card from, I think it's Debbie. Oh, On the car. Okay, so we're going to work on the car. Okay, great. And yeah, we'll take a look at that. And Rita, can we keep your comment just so we have record of, that way I mean, we're taking, obviously this is all being recorded. We're taking notes, but yeah. Did you add one? Yes, please do.
Mark Woodruff. I'm also on the committee and from the town of Buxton. And first, I'd also like to thank the other members of the committee being involved with this for the past year or so, and also thank Brookfield for, I guess, starting this whole initiative. I think it's worked quite well to have a facilitator. The meetings have been very productive. The comments I had, one was very specific. I had a chance to look over the decommissioning plan, and I was wondering if you could point out on that map there where that sudden drop will be above the dam. I thought that was something that was new information to me, that there would be like I think it was a 10-foot drop or more within a 100-foot distance. Where will that be in relation to where the dam is now?
So you're referring to something you read in the surrender application?
That's right.
Yep. So
yeah, it was a 7 to 10-foot drop over about 130 feet. And I was just wondering if you could point out on that map where that drop will be, because it leads to another question I have.
I guess it may not look like a drop. I think it's a 7 to 10 foot slope elevation change.
Yes, that's it.
Feet, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So right now I don't know if I can point to it on here because it's hopefully you can hear me okay, but
steal that from out.
River coming down through. So the slope of the river coming down from upstream is very flat. The profile is very flat. And then as it nears the dam or just at the dam, and really, this is something that still remains a bit of an unknown. And I actually didn't mention this. We didn't put this on this drawing, but there's a timber crib, remnants of a timber crib that exists upstream of this dam. We've talked about it before. I think we just missed it for this, but that's coming out as well, just so it's clear. But the slope of the river coming down through here is very flat. And then from just upstream of that timber crib dam to down here, just downstream, that's about the 100-foot distance that you're referring to, Mark, and that we referred to. The slope, the elevation changes quickly. So it goes from very flat to very steep to flat again. And so a bit of an assumption, and we may not know this until we won't know this until we take the dam out, because we are not able to get to a spot just upstream of the dam to really do any sort of real survey, because it's not safe to be upstream of there with a boat, right? But my assumption is that when they built the Timber Crib Dam, they actually built it on a bit of a falls. So oftentimes dams are built on the falls. They take advantage of the existing topography to get the elevation, and then downstream of the dam is the continuation of the falls. Not talking about a huge waterfall or anything, but just an elevation drop. And that's the elevation drop that's referred to in that 10 or so feet of 7.5 to 10 feet of drop in that 100 feet. It's kind of in this zone. And so when they built the new dam, the current dam, but the new dam in the 1950s, again, a bit of an assumption, they built that dam downstream of the existing timber crib, which we know that, but they did that. It's often done because the existing dam acts as a cofferdam, so they could do it in the dry, more or less, downstream of that dam, and they just cut the top of that timber crib off, and so that's still there and submerged. So that's the area of the drop, if that answers the question.
The reason I was concerned is about the location of that. is from a safety perspective, because the report seems to, or it's not clear. I think it needs to be clear on the future of the existing boat launch. You're going to take out the concrete um, planks that are there,
Yep.
which makes perfect. But I'm just thinking for someone who might be canoeing downstream, is that a possible way out rather than going over that 7 to 10 foot drop, because we don't know what the conditions will be like?
It certainly could be. I mean, the banks in that stretch just upstream of the dam are going to be, I think, fairly accessible. I mean, they will revegetate in, right? So
Yeah.
they may be bushy and hard to get through, I suppose, but there'll be a place where people can, come to shore more or less. It won't be
Right.
it won't be a designated spot. It won't be built out that way, but it'll be places where they can, come to shore. And I think, so the boat launch could become, I think oftentimes, things become, over time, just an unofficial kind of place, and the parking lot will remain. So I think it's likely that it may remain as a place where people do access it in a kind of an unofficial manner, right? And so I think it will remain that way, even though it may all revegetate, but there'll probably be foot trails and things.
Okay, I was just concerned by the wording that it would return to its natural state. But I think you're right, is that if people want to get out, going to find a way and they'll make their own path.
Yep.
The only concern that I recall from the committee's work is that when we were visiting the site, all of us observed that it's quite muddy along that shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully it'll dry out. Hopefully it'll vegetate. If there was a way to just to provide some steps or whatever from any remaining material, maybe that would be helpful too. But I think that boat launch after the dam is removed, I think it's important for that reason, and that there is a designated portage that directs people canoeing or kayaking down to the tail race put in. So
Yep.
I'm just recommending don't lose sight of that. If there's
Sure.
a way to, kind of direct people in that direction, that'd be good.
Thanks, Mark. All right, those are all the cards I have. Rini? Yeah.
Hi, guys. There were two items that I wanted to point out in the draft as you did it on the powerhouse. When you're talking about the turbines, you don't note that they're defunct. So it looks like they're rated turbines as if they were operational in the building. I think that that's incomplete. And the other item, when you talk about purpose of the project and you talk about the powerhouse, it states here that you plan to retain the powerhouse for other purposes that will be determined in the future. And I think that it would be fair to also note, subject to the laws, regulations, et cetera, of the town and the municipalities and state. Powerhouse remains everybody's favorite issue.
So add your suggestion.
Well, I
add
think,
text
well,
in
I
the,
think
in the
there-
document to say within the bounds of the law of
or something. I
yeah,
mean,
sure.
as has been discussed previously and within the committee, part of the argument has been the powerhouse, in the committee's view, is an abandoned structure. This is retaining some sort of potential future use. I don't know that we're going to settle that here and now, but I think that it would be fair in the proposal that you note that it is subject to zoning, shoreline zoning, and all of the other pieces.
Fair comment? Great. One more over here.
My question is simply, how quickly is the water going to drop? Is this going to drop overnight, or is this going to be 40 people running the wells running out all at the same time, or over a 2-year period, if it's slowly going to go down?
That's a good question. It will be a bit of a slight progression as the construction progresses. Not over 2 years. No, not over 2 years at all. So just in terms of sequence, it'll be two primary phases of dam removal within a mostly a 6-month window. So the construction will really be over 6 months. It might, mobilization, demobilization, restoration, it'll extend maybe beyond 6 months, but generally speaking, the construction window is about 6 months, expected to be. And so there will be two primary phases just because the river has to keep flowing, and we're going to plan to do the work in the dry, meaning not sitting in the river demolishing concrete. So there'll be a cofferdam, 2 stages of cofferdam. So the first stage of cofferdam won't really result in a change in the water levels because the spillway will still be high, the water will be going over it, so the water levels will be pretty much what they are now. And then the second stage, so maybe think halfway, right? In terms of that 6-month window, there'll be a drop because that means that we've switched over to the second half of the spillway and the water will be flowing through the area that the dam has been removed. And so that will drop the water a bit, right? It won't drop it all the way because it's still going to be kind of choked off, not the full width of the river. So when it comes, at each stage, it'll drop pretty quickly. It will, because it's not a big impoundment. So it'll come in a couple of stages, but each stage will happen fairly quickly as they switch from one to the other. Yep.
And I think, Ryan, you could probably speak to this, but part of the goal of this survey and the wells is to have a pretty good idea of, who's out there that has wells that could be impacted. So if they could, there could be a pretty quick communication and understanding of what's going on.
Early on, you all published a hydrology report that showed what the expected drop in the river was.
Yeah.
And that was when it was just half the dam removed.
Yeah.
How much more is going to drop now with the whole dam removed?
The reality is there's not a lot of difference. Even with half of the spillway, if half of the spillway were to remain, it really depends on the flow. The higher the flow, the more that may have an impact versus more of a normal flow. You'd see less of an impact between half removal and full removal as far as upstream water levels, because there's still a lot of river capacity to go around the half. So the answer really is there's not a lot of noticeable impact in water levels as a result of half of removal and full removal.
And do you think that estimate is accurate still?
I will say it's close. We've done a lot of modeling, computer modeling to model the river flows and with the full removal. I don't know that we have updated all of those charts that were available via the website. So I'd say they're pretty close, but it's not. It may not be the final, but it's not. I'd say it's still pretty representative.
Could maybe you show that rendering that we had? That'd be helpful. And what flow that might be?
Well, I'm going to say that that's more of an artist rendering and not necessarily tied to a particular, to say it's 1,000 CFS or 2,000 CFS. I wouldn't. It's not that precise. That's just a rendering. I mean, we have models that, the models and the profiles are very reliable, but the rendering is less so, I would say.
If I recall, Kevin, the study report that I think this gentleman's referring to had data on both full and partial.
Yes,
right?
the study report did. I'm not maybe referring to that, but we also had a website link that you could go and click through some different layers and be able to look at different water levels and depths and things that and that was, like said, that was for the partial, and I don't remember if we updated it for the final. So we may
Now,
not.
we can
update
take
the
a look,
website.
you can take a look at
We can
that.
take a look at that.
Presently on the website, you've got the questions and answers based on 2022. So when is that going to be updated? I think based on this meeting and perhaps others, I think those need to be done fairly swiftly so that everyone is kept aware, not everybody's here, et cetera. When is that going to happen? When can we expect that?
I don't know if, so the questions, are you referring to like frequently asked questions? Was it FAQs on the website? Yeah, good question. I guess, I don't know, looking at David up there, we can probably get the website updated sometime, with recent FAQs or additional FAQs maybe, or recent information. I'll let Brookfield say when, but, sure.
And I might just mention that so this is a draft plan, and then obviously taking public comment, then when it gets submitted to FERC, it will get submitted. There may be revisions based on comments, and then the comments themselves will be also submitted to FERC, right? So
That's correct. That's
they'll
correct.
see those comments.
Yeah, the comments that come through this process will all be made public. They may not all make it to the website as FAQs, but the questions and comments will be issued part of the report or the application. It's a fair point. Yep.
I just got a couple questions. What's your best guesstimate of how far the water level will drop behind Town Hall here? In feet.
I always try to qualify that by saying it depends on what flow, right? So at very
Average.
high.
I mean, we have.
Yeah. So at an average flow, normal kind of flow, I'm going a little bit by memory, so forgive me for that, but I think we were expecting that upstream of the railroad piers, excuse me, the water level drop will be somewhere in the order of 5 to 6 feet lower than what it is now.
That won't leave too much of a recreational.
Yeah, lower than what it is now. So that's not far from what you would see when when Brookfield lowers the flashboards and has a drawdown now.
But you're going to take the footings out too, right?
Yes, correct.
So that's a couple more feet.
Potentially a couple more feet, yes.
Yep.
So the dam from the top of the flashboards to the bedrock, the bottom of the concrete, varies, but it's somewhere around 17 to 18 feet.
No, I'm just
But we're
wondering what it's going to be upstream.
Yeah,
here.
understood. Yeah, right.
And
But it's not going to be that much. It's going to be.
Does anybody know there's an eagle's nest up here?
No, we haven't surveyed for eagles upstream. So
There's a pair of
is that?
mating. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And what are you going to keep the water at the level this summer? Are you going to keep it the normal or what has been the norm?
Yeah,
Or
no
you
plans to change it this summer, water levels for this year.
You're going to what?
We're, no plans to change water levels this summer.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little high right now. So you're going to put the boards back up and regulate the water.
Correct, that's the plan. Yep, the boards will be back up. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, a question over there or comment?
Speaking about the flashboards, those are down now, correct?
Correct.
Some of them?
Some of them are, yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did I see an announcement that next May that the flashboards are going to come down permanently?
Yeah, we filed or put in for a variance to operate with the flashboards out, and so that went through the agency process there, and we're planning in the spring of next year to remove those flashboards and kind of start this process a little bit, if you will. Hopefully the revegetation of the shoreline, stabilization of that with a gradual decrease over time, and then that'll lead us into the construction, late next year into early 2028. But that's our plan there, to have those flashboards removed next spring and keep them out till the end of the decommissioning process.
Okay, I don't see any more hands. That brings us really to the close of the meeting. Ryan, did you want to say anything as we just end?
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate the positive feedback from some of the decommissioning team members there. I agree. I feel we've made a lot of progress. I think it was really collaborative as a group. As we talked about, right, the spillway going from partial to full is I think a huge win. The fiber mill being demoed and capped over, I think, is a huge win. Improved, we feel, the access to the river, not using the existing boat launch, but now creating a new access here on the town hall was something we weren't planning on doing, and we're working towards that now. I feel like there was a lot of positives through that process with both Buxton and Hollis and the representatives, and I appreciate everything that, the time everybody put into that. We met, I don't know, 6 times, I believe, at least, if not more. We still have ongoing well subcommittee group. We're going to have a subcommittee group for the rec access. We've got a hydrant subcommittee group. So a lot of work's gone into this, and I just want to say I appreciate, your involvement. And I think it's the plans, like as you mentioned, Terry, good negotiations, and we can continue having those discussions. And please send comments in on the plan, and that's something that we'll be evaluating, and ultimately FERC will have the final say on what the plan looks like. So
Great.
Yeah.
And I'll echo the appreciation for all of you taking the time to come and share your comments and thoughts and questions with us tonight, and definitely to the committee. I know you've all committed a lot of time, and appreciate that. I do think it's helped advance the dialogue a lot. So with that, thank you again for coming. We're officially adjourned.
Thanks for the moral support here. Yeah.